My name is Sarah, and I've been babysitting for as long as I can remember. It was a Friday night, and I had just landed a gig looking after the Harper kids while their parents attended a late-night event. The Harpers lived in a colossal mansion on the outskirts of town, the kind of place that echoed with every footstep, making it seem even more enormous when you were alone. As the Harpers left, they assured me that their 3 children were already fast asleep. The only rule they emphasized was not to disturb the children unless it was an emergency. They handed me a number for emergencies and reminded me that they would be back around 2 a.m. I settled into the living room, the soft glow of the TV casting flickering shadows across the expansive space. The dim light added an eerie touch to the antique furniture that adorned the room. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the distant ticking of an antique grandfather clock. An hour passed, and I started to feel a subtle unease. The house seemed to have a life of its own, its creaks and groans becoming more pronounced. I chalked it up to the house's age and tried to focus on the TV. But then I heard a soft whisper from the hallway. My heart skipped a beat, and I strained my ears to catch any sign of movement. "Sarah." The voice was barely audible, a distant murmur that sent shivers down my spine. I convinced myself it was just my imagination, perhaps the house settling, yet an uneasy feeling lingered. I decided to check on the children to ease my nerves. Climbing the grand staircase, I felt a chill in the air that seemed to follow me. The corridor was lined with family portraits, their eyes seeming to watch my every move. Reaching the children's bedrooms, I hesitated outside the first door. The room was dark, the only illumination coming from a nightlight. I peeked inside, finding the 2 youngest children, Emily and Jake, sound asleep. Relieved, I closed the door quietly, but as I turned to leave, I glimpsed a shadowy figure at the end of the hallway. Panic set in as I realized the figure was staring right at me. I couldn't make out any features, just a silhouette in the darkness. I rushed back downstairs, my heart pounding. I convinced myself it was a trick of the light or my overactive imagination. The night continued, and I tried to focus on the TV, but the unease lingered like a fog. Around 1:30 a.m., the whispers returned, more insistent this time. "Sarah, come here." I followed the voice, my footsteps echoing in the vast emptiness of the house. It led me to the basement door. The air grew colder with each step, and the dim light flickered overhead. As I opened the basement door, a gust of cold wind rushed past me. The whispers grew louder, almost desperate. I descended the creaky stairs, the darkness enveloping me. In the dim light, I saw the figure again, a shadowy form at the far end of the basement. It beckoned me closer. Fear and curiosity battled within me as I took hesitant steps forward. Suddenly, the basement light went out, plunging me into total darkness. The whispers became frenzied, surrounding me from all sides. Panicking, I fumbled for the basement door, scrambling to escape the suffocating darkness. The moment the door swung open, the house fell silent. The whispers ceased, and the oppressive atmosphere lifted. Gasping for breath, I stumbled into the hallway, the basement door closing behind me with a heavy thud. The clock struck 2 a.m. as the Harpers returned. I tried to compose myself, telling them everything was fine. They paid me and bid me good night, oblivious to the chilling encounter I had just survived. As I walked away from the mansion, I couldn't shake the feeling that the house held secrets, whispers of a past that refused to be forgotten. The memory of that night haunted me, a ghostly presence that would forever linger in the shadows of that grand, foreboding mansion. In the days that followed, I couldn't shake the lingering unease that the Harper Mansion had left in its wake. The memory of the basement whispers and the shadowy figure replayed in my mind like a haunting melody. Determined to make sense of the inexplicable events, I delved into the history of the grand estate. As it turned out, the Harper Mansion had a dark and mysterious past. Decades ago, the house had been the site of a tragic family incident. The original owners, the Callahan, had lost their only child in the very basement where I had felt the eerie presence. Rumors circulated that the child's spirit lingered, forever tethered to the mansion. Driven by a mix of curiosity and trepidation, I decided to revisit the Harper Mansion during daylight hours. The grandeur that had captivated me before now felt overshadowed by an ominous energy. The memories of that fateful night flooded back, and I approached the basement door with caution. As I descended the stairs, the air became thick with sorrow. The whispers returned, softer this time, carrying the weight of a grieving soul. I felt a cold breeze like a phantom's touch, brushing against my skin. The basement seemed frozen in time, as if preserving the sorrowful echoes of the past. In the dim light, I discerned a faint figure standing near the old furnace. It was the ghostly silhouette of a child, the embodiment of the tragedy that had unfolded decades ago. The child looked at me with sorrowful eyes, reaching out as if seeking comfort. Overwhelmed with empathy, I hesitated before taking a step forward. The child's whispers grew clearer, expressing a longing for closure. It was as if the spirit needed someone to acknowledge its pain, to recognize the tragedy that had bound it to the earthly realm. With a heavy heart, I spoke words of compassion, acknowledging the child's presence and the sorrow that had consumed the mansion. The atmosphere shifted, and the basement seemed to release the trapped energy that had held the spirit captive. As I ascended the stairs, the oppressive weight lifted and the whispers ceased. The mansion felt different, as if a lingering sadness had dissipated. I left the house with a mix of relief and sadness, realizing that the Harper Mansion had been a vessel for a restless spirit seeking solace. Months later, the Harpers reached out to me for another babysitting job. Though apprehensive, I returned to the mansion. To my surprise, the atmosphere had transformed. No longer did the house echo with ghostly whispers. Instead, it exuded a quiet peace. The children slept soundly, undisturbed by the lingering shadows of the past. As I sat in the living room, I couldn't help but feel a sense of closure. The Harper Mansion, once haunted by a tragic history, had found a measure of peace, and I, in turn, had played a role in helping a lost soul find rest. As I left the mansion that night, I glanced back one last time. The grand estate stood in silence, its history forever etched in its walls. The memory of that eerie night lingered, but now it carried a whisper of gratitude, a tale of a babysitter who, unwittingly, became a bridge between the living and the lingering spirits of the past.